Happy Victory Monday, Lions fans! What a weird game yesterday, but at least it was a win. Welcome into Tori's Take, presented by Priority Health. Listen, nobody dominated yesterday's game against the Chargers. At times, it looked like nobody wanted to win that game. There was a lot of sloppy football on both sides. Matt Prater uncharacteristically missed an extra point and a field goal, and the Chargers kicker, who is actually their punter, missed 2 kicks. Shout out to the Ford Field uprights once again. Then there was the major flag party in that game. At one point in the game, there was more flags than penalties, or at least the same amount at 16, which was ridiculous. But despite the messy win, there were a lot of positives in this game too. Kerryon Johnson was pretty fun to watch, juking defenders, putting on spin moves, and taking it 36 yards for a touchdown. The real star for me, though, on this touchdown was Frank Ragnow. He had a grown man block to spring Kerryon for the score. He just mows that guy over. My favorite part, though, was his early celebration from behind, watching Kerryon take it to the house. Nice vertical there, Frank. Speaking of the offensive line, how about Tyrell Crosby filling in for the injured Taylor Decker? The Lions' offensive line allowed 0 sacks on Sunday against Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram without their starting left tackle. Now that is an impressive feat. Crosby himself was only credited with 2 allowed pressures. That's what it looks like when the cliche next man up mentality actually works. A major turning point in this game to me was when the Chargers fell apart on a would-be touchdown drive, scoring twice and then having both scores nullified by penalty. Then they get to the 1-yard line off of a Lions penalty, and they fumble it away. Devon Kennard recovers it here. At least the Lions prevented what would have been a game-winning score, even though they weren't able to capitalize on getting the ball back. The real clutch moment for Detroit came with Darius Slay's last-minute interception. He had a tough game with Keenan Allen. Anytime you match up 2 high-caliber players, you're probably not going to win every single battle, and Allen was winning a lot of them earlier on, but Slay came through when it counted with the turnover that got the ball back to the offense, where all they needed was a first down to seal it. That's why they say big play Slay, coming through when it counts. The Lions haven't played their best football the last 2 weeks, but hey, they are undefeated heading into tough matchups with the Eagles and the Chiefs before the bye, and that's not a bad place to be. We'll be back in just a minute with the extra point after the break, and I will be answering your questions, so send them in the comment section right now. Don't go anywhere.
Last year, Mark finished last in his fantasy baseball league, so this year he brought his daughter to the draft.
He's hitting 285.
But look at his RISP.
This guy.
Calling in the closer? Now that's smart.
Him?
Like choosing Priority Health Insurance. It's how smart people access a network that includes 97% of primary care doctors in Michigan. Priority Health. Think smart, live smart.
End zone. Caught! Oh, baby, what a catch! Picked up by Ryan. Come back right side. Gonna get hit. Falls on the ground. Oh, this place is on fire now!
Welcome back to Tori's Take, presented by Priority Health. This is the part of the show where we give you the extra point. Sometimes with the extra point, we take you around the league, but today we are actually sticking with the Lions for Victory Monday and showing you something that I was very entertained by in Sunday's game. On the video boards on Sunday, they showed this clip where they showed fans' faces, and they actually were superimposed like a Snapchat filter with Coach Patricia's beard, headset, pencil, and everything, even the backwards cap. I absolutely loved this little segment. It's a fun little thing for fans to participate in during the game. Get that little Matt Patricia look going on with the classic pencil and headset. Really cool thing from the video board crew, as well as my personal favorite, the Lion Cub cam. If you guys have been to a Ford Field game, you know exactly what I am talking about. All right, guys, you have been sending in your questions during Tori's Take, and we're going to answer a few of them right now. The first one right here is from Chris Black. He asks, I thought Ty Johnson looked good with his limited touches. Think there could be a bigger role for him going forward. Ty Johnson has looked good throughout the preseason and the regular season. He had 5 carries for 30 yards yesterday, which is really good for a rookie. Kerryon Johnson, though, is really impressing this season. We talked about him earlier in the first segment. There was really no reason to take the ball out of Kerryon's hands when he was playing so well, so I understand that move there. We saw more of him this week than we did last week in Arizona, but Ty Johnson is definitely a nice complement to Kerryon's skill set. Next question here. This one is from One Pride. They ask, how important is a quarterback like Matthew Stafford with all of his experience, who gives away 2 balls but doesn't care about it and then leads the Lions with perfect throws for the game-winning drive? That is exactly who Matthew Stafford has been his entire career. This guy does not get rattled, and he showed that on Sunday. We saw that fourth quarter magic that we typically see from Matthew Stafford. We didn't get to see it in Arizona in the fourth quarter, but this week we definitely saw it with that go-ahead touchdown to Kenny Golladay. Stafford was 22 for 30 for 245 yards, 2 touchdowns, and those 2 interceptions. The interceptions didn't rattle him, though, because he was still willing to throw it up and go deep to Kenny for that go-ahead touchdown. This third question here asks, what do you think the Lions will need to improve on? Well, there are a lot of things that they will need to improve on as the season goes on. They certainly haven't played clean football yet for 4 quarters in either of their 2 games so far. That's definitely the biggest thing that they will need to improve on. Another thing from yesterday is penalties. That was a problem for both teams. We talked about that. Lions came away from the game with 8 penalties, and a lot of them were on special teams. The Lions really struggled in that area this week and last week as well. It's an area that they will need to clean up. We saw Danny Amendola take over the punt return duties. We will see if that ends up being a permanent change for the Lions, but definitely improvement on special teams needs to happen. The Lions also had a little bit of a hard time stopping the run on Sunday, allowing 137 yards on the ground. That's an area that they will need to improve upon as the season goes on. Good thing there are plenty more games left to be played, and I'm sure we will see the Lions improve in some of those areas. This next question is from Lions Report. They ask, how important was it for Detroit to go into a stretch of playing Philly and Kansas City undefeated? I mentioned that in the top of the show. I think that is absolutely huge that the Lions were able to come out of the first 2 games of the season undefeated. Granted, one of those games was a tie, but this one against the Chargers was a win. A lot of times NFL coaches look at seasons in quarters, and the Lions are already, 1-0-1 for the quarter, so they have 0 losses in that loss column. And for the next 2 games, they've got some really tough opponents in the Eagles and the Chiefs, but the Eagles do have a lot of injuries after their game on Sunday. They really struggled there in the injury department, so Lions could be catching a break when they head to Philadelphia next week. Either way, they've got some really tough teams coming up before that bye week in week 5, so coming out undefeated out of the first 2 games, I think is absolutely huge. This next question is from Eric Jonathan. He asks, what are TJ's thoughts on the influx of Hawk memes? Well, Eric, I don't know what TJ's personal thoughts are, but my personal thoughts are that the Hawk memes are absolutely amazing. We didn't see as many stats from him on the stat sheet yesterday against the Chargers, but everybody is loving TJ Hawkinson, including the memes on the internet. This one is one of my personal faves. You might know this picture as usually being the Rock, but this one here is the Hawk. Definitely save that one for future use when we see TJ Hawkinson back in the end zone. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in to Tori's Take presented by Priority Health, and thank you for sending in your questions. We'll see you right back here next week. From Xfinity Studio, I'm Tori Petrie.